simply go on my blog. I have written a blog on this topic, and I'll show you that blog in a second. But before that, let me just make sure the streaming is working. Then I'll make sure the recording is working, and then we can start. Yeah, I think the streaming is working, so that's good. Let's open up the blog here. Yep, there it is. And those of you who've just joined today, like I can see, for example, I think our newest member is Vishal. Vishal, make sure you also read the last two blogs that we did because these three classes were kind of interlinked. Today we're doing cardio. The week before we did resistance training, how to build muscle. The week before that we did biometric tracking, how to track calories, macros using apps, etc. How to track your body fat percentage. So this is kind of part of a package. So any of you who are just joining, I think it's really just Vishal who's a new member today. Make sure you read the last two blogs as well, and I'll show you how to find those. So let's start. Live streams happening. It's going to record as well. Yeah, and now we can start. This is the blog. It's called The Most Effective Way to Do Cardio Exercises in 5 Steps. 5 steps. Now, I didn't want this blog to be one of those blogs where you have a lot of suspense. No suspense. I tell you the 5 steps straight away, and then we'll go into the 5 steps in a bit more detail. But these are those 5 steps. Number one, the baseline. Focus on your daily steps. A lot of people just focus on what they do for half an hour at the gym or 45 minutes at the gym. But what happens the rest of those 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours? That's more important. That's going to be more impactful. So, step one, focus on the daily steps. That is a baseline. Step two, introduce some zone 2 cardio. We also call this steady state cardio. Steady state zone 2 cardio. Just going to make some notes. I need to add the word steady state. 1 second. And I'll explain to you what steady state means in a second as well. Step three is introduce some high intensity interval training into your cardio. And the way you do this is what stage four, hybrid conditioning, combining all of those three things, having an adequate step count, getting in some zone 2 steady state cardio, and getting in some high intensity interval training. And step five is integrating the entire system by also combining this with your calorie cycling regime. And I have a separate video on calorie cycling and a blog on calorie cycling for any of you who haven't attended that. I think most of you have. So, step one, this is what we call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which means the calories you're burning when you're not exercising. So this is not intentional. This is not, I'm going to go to the gym for, excuse me, please call mommy. Yeah, fine. Every single time that I'm doing the talk, my wife calls because she always forgets. According to the message, I'm not doing any work. Anyways, okay. Let's get back to the talk. Yes, so NEAT has a much bigger impact than what you plan for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. This is 10 hours, 14 hours of your day, 16 hours of your day. If you're walking under 4,000 steps a day, that's considered sedentary. If it's 4 to 10,000 steps a day, that's moderate. If it's over 10,000 steps a day, that's called being active. I would like all of you to be monitoring your step count. You might not be doing a lot about it, but trust me, In everyone's weight loss journey, there comes a time when, let's say you're at a certain calorie count, you're trying to grow some muscle, you're doing a certain amount of cardio, and you're hitting a baseline. And you're like, listen, I don't want to reduce my calories any further because that's going to make me feel terrible. And I just don't want to do that. I want to enjoy my life. I want my cheat meals. I want my cheat days. I want to be able to be happy. So, how can I lose a bit more weight without sacrificing on my diet so much? And then the answer will generally be increase your step counts. But to do that, you'll need to know your step counts. And so if you go on my the blog in which I recommend supplements and exercise things, you will also find that $60 Samsung Galaxy smartwatch, which for only $60 you can get it works with a pedometer, also uh, monitors sleep as well. So you don't have to get a $550 Apple Watch. Even a $60 Samsung Galaxy watch can do the same job. And what are the things you can do to increase your daily step counts? I mean, you can have these under table treadmills, these mini ellipticals, these walking pads. These are all really smart ways of increasing your step counts. You can have walking meetings and phone calls. So instead of just, lounging on your sofa while you're taking calls, make it a habit to be strolling around. Maybe go for a little walk outside while you're taking these calls on your headphone. So these are all smart ways of increasing your step count. And it really starts with awareness. If you know what your step count is, and you know you've got to spend half an hour on a call, then, and the weather is nice outside, and fortunately we're going to have nicer weather now for a good few months. Be intentional about it. Step out of the house, put on your headphones, and do the call while you're walking around. And you'll see your step counts going up, and you'll really have achieved something while working at the same time. So you've got to be intentional about these things. Something else you can do is exercise snacks, which is micro bouts of activity. And this can be done for cardio as well. Climbing some stairs between meals, doing a bit of cardio for 10 minutes before each meal or after each meal. This can also be done in the form of exercise snacks. And there was a really nice study here in type 2 diabetics, 41 adults, randomized controlled crossover trial. And what they did was one group would do a 30-minute walk, the other group would do a 10-minute walk after each meal. And then this is a crossover trial, so then they swapped over. So the first group would do the 30-minute walk, and the next group would do the 10-minute walk after each meal. And they found that across the board, there was a 12% further reduction in sugar in those people who walked after meals instead of just doing one walk in the evening. Although it was the total amount of walking was the same, 30 minutes. Which should make sense. You just had food, your sugar is going to go up. You go for a walk, you burn your sugar. And so there is benefit of doing it as an exercise snack as well. In fact, if you like, I can show you my exercise snacks today. Today's my cardio day, by the way. So today's my cardio day. And so today already I've done two exercise snacks. Let me go to my Snap Calorie and show you. I just recorded. I don't like calories burned to be part of the calorie equation, but I like recording it just because it kind of makes me kind of happy. So if I go into my exercise section, oh, it's not showing fully. But essentially, there is a section in Snap Calorie where you can put in your exercise. So you can see 20 minutes, 177 calories. Now, I don't want it to count the 177 calories. But what I did was in the morning, I did 10 minutes of elliptical, and I have a micro elliptical, a small mini elliptical, which I stand on. So it's like walking. And in lunchtime, I did 10 minutes of exercise bike. And the way I add in a bit of high intensity work is at the end, For example, for 30 minutes at the end, not 30 minutes, it's 10 minutes, so 30 seconds at the end, I will speed up and bike as fast as I can. Or on the elliptical, I will speed up and do it as hard as I can. That's how I add in the intensity to that workout. And there are various ways of adding intensity to the workout, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. And the reason I do cardio breaks or snacks instead of doing cardio in one long session is because I find cardio extremely boring. And so I find it easier to do 10 minutes of elliptical, 10 minutes of exercise bike, and I'll probably go for a bit of a walk outside in for a run outside in the neighborhood for 10 minutes. And that'll be my 30 minutes of cardio today. And at the end, in the last perhaps 20, 30 seconds of the run, I will accelerate. I usually run around the block. So when I take my last turn around the block, I'll accelerate. And that'll be the intensity that you need to add in a element of intensity into your workout as well. That's also important. So let's get back to the talk. So step one was to make sure you're counting your step counts and be aware of your step counts. Step two is building the aerobic foundation. That's what we call zone two steady state cardio. Before we talk about steady state cardio, let's just have a quick Q&A session. Any questions at all? Let's have one question from one of you, and then we'll move on to step two. Need a volunteer. Okay, Mr. Gramanis, please go ahead.
Yes, doctor. Your recommendation for per day, how many minutes of cardio and how many times a week, doctor? What's your recommendation?
Yes, so what I recommend is that you divide your week into 3 or 4 resistance training days. So those are weightlifting days and 2 or 3 cardio days. So divide them up. Don't do resistance training and cardio on the same day. Do them on separate days. And for each of these things, I believe you should be spending at least half an hour per day. So you should be spending at least 30 minutes doing the resistance training. Because if you attended my previous talk last week, you need to do at least 9 sets of each body part. If you remember, we divided into 4 parts: upper body push, upper body pull, core, and legs. 9 sets. If you're doing it 3 days a week, you will need to do 3 sets of all 4 parts, which will be a total of 12 sets. If you're doing it 4 days a week, you could do something like 5 sets each day, which will be about 10 sets because you're doing half body split on those days. In any case, resistance training would be 3 to 4 days a week, and the other days can be cardio days, and that could be 2 to 3 days a week. In every case, it should be about half an hour. Half an hour of cardio, 2 to 3 days a week, half an hour of resistance training, 3 to 4 days a week is what I recommend. Nicola has a question. Nicola, go ahead.
I totally forget my question, Dr. Rowland, but for the steps, the number of steps, for someone who is more on the heavier side, would you say they are to aim for at least the 10,000 per day? And do they do it continuously or is just throughout the day?
No, I don't actually have any kind of recommendation at all. What I recommend is just get a pedometer, something which counts your steps, and just be aware of it. That's all for the starting. Just be aware. And we all have different lifestyles and different kinds of habits. Some of us are ranging at 3,000 steps a day. Some of us are ranging at 20,000 like naturally, you know. There are people among us who are like postmen or doing some very active jobs and they're getting 20,000 steps already. And so the only thing I recommend for the time being is just having an awareness of that. Start doing your cardio, and for the step counts, just develop an awareness of it, and slowly you can start creeping up. You know, if you know that you're under 4,000 steps, which is sedentary, then you try to move up to over 4,000. Try to become moderately active. If you're moderately active already, at about 8 or 9,000, and if you're already hitting your targets because you're hitting a calorie deficit, you're doing resistance training, you're doing cardio, you're losing weight, your body's getting into better shape. If all of that is happening, you don't necessarily have to increase your step counts. But if things are not really working out like you'd like, you've made changes to your diet, you've done some resistance training, you're taking some supplements, you're everything is buttoned down, but you're still not seeing results like you would like to, then one of the things to do might be well to increase your step counts and do that intentionally. Intentionally go for a walk outside, intentionally do meetings walking, intentionally get a walking pad or a mini elliptical while you're at home. So you can, even if you're watching television, you can be on a mini elliptical and getting your steps in, or you could be on a walking pad. And if you look at the Amazon links, nothing is more than $200. You can get these days treadmills, walking pads, ellipticals, everything under $200. I mean, gone are the days when we used to spend $2,000, $2,500 on these machines. They're so cheap now on Amazon. And so we can design. I think the first step has just to be awareness, and everyone will have very, very different step counts according to their life situation. Yeah, I see people with naturally 20,000 step counts and people with like barely 2,000 step counts as well. So, yeah, just an awareness is the first step.
Okay, just another quick question. The elliptical, would you say it is sufficient, or it can substitute mainly than doing the physical walk?
It
If
can
because
do.
I
It
sit a
can do.
lot. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so okay, so I don't go out, to be honest, and walk a lot. Maybe the weather is changing, so I'll do that some more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
don't do the elliptical sitting down personally. I do it standing up. So I actually walk on the elliptical. It's like that. And you'll see me
oh,
rocking around. So the one I recommend on Amazon is a very, very solid one. It takes a lot of weight. It's very solid. It's quite strongly built. So I'll
okay.
show it to you on the blog in a second. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dr.
All right.
Ward.
Let's go back on the talk. So that was level one, being aware of your step counts. Level two is developing that basic cardio, what's called zone two steady state cardio. What is zone 2 steady state cardio? Zone 2 steady state cardio is generally done at about 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. Typically, your breathing is a bit elevated, but it is still controlled. You can still talk to a person, so you can still maintain a conversation, and you're able to breathe through your nose the whole time. And this is the level of cardio at which you will be burning more fat, you'll be developing more mitochondria density in the muscles, so your muscles will become better at burning energy. You'll be growing new blood vessels, so capillary growth happens at this level. You'll be developing more metabolic flexibility because you start burning more sugar, burning more fat, moving over for sugar burning. And over time, the more steady state cardio you do, the lower your resting heart rate will be, which is, of course, good for longevity as well. Now, some of you might be wondering what 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate is. Well, the most common formula to roughly estimate your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. And that is a rough guesstimate. But yeah, you can go by 220 minus age, and anything from 60 to 70% of the heart rate will be what is described as the zone 2 or steady state cardio zone. So you should be doing steady state cardio. I recommend probably 2 to 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Now, as you saw in my case, I find cardio extremely boring. And so, for example, on Sunday, I played tennis for 1 hour with my son. So that was good enough for me. If you play tennis, that's good enough for cardio. Or any other sport, soccer, volleyball, whatever you enjoy. And I do my cardio in three steps. I do 10 minutes of elliptical, 10 minutes of biking, 10 minutes of running. I like to divide it up because I just find spending 30 minutes on one machine extremely boring. Now, if you're not someone who finds it boring and you can run on something for 30 minutes, that's fine. That's completely cool. But you should be spending on those 2 to 3 days a week, you should be spending about 30 minutes doing cardio. This is a very interesting study which showed that people who do steady state cardio, they actually improve their brain and they improve their memory. There's a 12-month study, and they compared people doing 40 minutes walk 3 times a week. And this was steady, like brisk walking 3 times a week, to another group just doing stretching. No, no hate to people who do stretching, but compared to brisk walking, there was a 2% shrinkage uh, in the stretching group, but improvement in the walking group. And there was improvement in memory as well in the walking group. So this study concluded that uh, structural brain decline and memory can be slowed down by doing more exercise, particularly aerobic exercise. Okay. So that is the thing about steady state cardio. Let's have a few more maybe one or two more Q&As about steady state cardio, and then we'll move to the third level, which is high intensity interval training.
Doc, what is the correct time to do the cardio? Before or after we do weights?
So my recommendation, Pam, is don't do it on the same days. Keep separate resistance training days and separate cardio days, because remember, even your uh, calorie intake and protein intake will be different, and that's the level 5 we're talking about, called calorie cycling. So if you want to do a brief warm up cardio before resistance training, sure, you can do a bit of warm up if it helps your body warm up and it makes you less prone to injury. If you have to do cardio with weights, then it's better to do the cardio after weights, because you'll get more fatigued with cardio and then you'll be able to push less weights. And so that'll have a detrimental effect on the amount of energy you have and the amount of weights you can push. But I propose mostly what's called calorie cycling, which means 3 to 4 resistance training days where you have higher protein intake, higher calorie intake, and 2 to 3 cardio days where you focus on lesser calorie intake, more fiber intake, more polyphenol intake, and I'm not so worried about protein intake. So typically on resistance training days, my protein intake would be 1.6 grams per kilogram per day. So for someone my weight, it could be 120, 130, 140 grams of protein. While on resistance training, well, cardio day, like today is a cardio day, I'll probably barely scrape even 0.8 grams per kilogram. I might get like 70 grams or 65, 70 grams of protein, but I'll be more focused on fiber, so whole fruits, whole vegetables, and I'll be more focused on getting my steps in, and I'll be more focused on my cardio. So I'm just kind of dividing my fat burning days and dividing my anabolic days. Because remember, there's this paradox. Everyone, like I say, everyone and everyone's mother, everyone and everyone's mother is saying that you can burn fat and grow muscle at the same time, but that's actually not really that true, because when you're in a calorie deficit and your body is in a starvation mode, it does not want to grow muscle, because the main three things we need to grow muscle is protein, stimulus, and calories. You also need calories to grow muscle. And so I'm of the believer that you really have to differentiate between fat burning days and resistance training days. Yeah, yeah. Of course, you can have a rest day as well. I mean, you could typically have 3 training days, 3 cardio days, and you can have one rest day. But it's entirely up to you. Typically, in my case, the days where I have to eat more food because I know I have a party to attend to, or I'm going to a friend's house, I will allocate that day as a resistance training day. So I'll make it a point to try to go to the gym or even go to my basement and push some weights. Do 3 sets of maybe it's a full day, full body. So I usually do full body split 3 days a week. So I'll probably do 3 sets of push-ups, 3 sets of pull-ups, 3 sets of ab rollers, and 3 sets of squats. And that'll take me about half an hour. And I will do that intentionally on my higher calorie days because I know that those calories will help me build more muscle. Yeah. All right, let's get back to the talk. So, level one was step counts. Level two was steady state cardio. Level three is high intensity exercise. Okay. Let's talk about that next. High intensity interval training. Now, this is what expands your VO2 max, which is the total amount of oxygen that your lungs are able to shift in a minute. It also expands what's called anaerobic capacity, which means your body is able to function both in the presence of oxygen as well as in the absence of oxygen. And the ability to uh, produce energy in the absence of oxygen is increased. When we do exercise, then byproducts like lactate are produced. These are lactic acid or lactate is what gives you that burning feeling in the muscles, and it is what gives you that fatigue. The more high intensity exercise you do, the more tolerant your body becomes to lactate. You produce more mitochondria, which is the energy cells of your body, and you also make your high output energy systems more efficient by doing this. This was a nice study which compared, done by Martin Gibala. Martin Gibala is actually based in McMaster University. And what they did was they had one group doing continuous endurance exercise, like jogging, for example, and another group doing sprint interval trainings through cycling. So you would be cycling in a steady state, and then you would sprinting, and then you slow down again and sprint again. That's typically a kind of pattern for high intensity exercise. And what they showed was both groups had benefits. Both of them had increased mitochondrial function. Both groups improved the insulin sensitivity, so sugar came down. Both groups improved the oxidative capacity or oxygen utilization within muscles, but these adaptations were faster in the high intensity group. So you can get all these benefits through steady state that you can get through high intensity, but when you add in high intensity, you get the benefits faster. You push your body to make the changes faster when you add high intensity. And so what you should do is you should combine your steady state cardio with high intensity, and that's called hybrid conditioning. And there are a few ways of doing this. For example, one way to do this would be, for example, today I was doing the elliptical for 10 minutes. In the last 30 seconds of that elliptical, I could just do the elliptical as fast as I can. So really speed up. Uh, so that you start, because remember, steady state cardio, zone 2 cardio, you're able to talk to another person, you're able to breathe through your nose, and your heart rate is at about 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate, which is 220 minus your age. That is not the case with high intensity. With high intensity, you're breathing through your mouth, you're panting, you cannot talk to someone because you're at maximal exertion, and you start feeling a bit sweaty and a bit hot and a bit bothered with high intensity. But you can only maintain that for a short period of time. Anything ranging from 10 seconds at a time to 30 seconds at a time. And so if you're doing a 10-minute elliptical, depending on your fitness level, you could decide to make the last 10 seconds or the last 30 seconds full speed as hard as you can. And just that extra push at the end will just improve the output you get. It's very similar to what you do resistance training. In resistance training, if you do 3 sets, you might not do all 3 sets till failure. You might do the first 2 sets, what we describe as reps in reserve. You keep a few reps in reserve where you don't go to failure. But the last rep, you try to go to failure. You try to go to a level where you cannot lift that weight anymore. And the same applies to this as well, to cardio as well. Now, the other way you could do resistance training is you could add in the intervals more evenly. So, for example, if you're doing a 30-minute cycling or a 30-minute jogging, you could increase speed for about 15-20 seconds every 5 minutes. Or you can also just add in the high speed for the last few minutes. For example, If you do a 20-minute elliptical or swim or jogging, whatever, and you're on a machine doing elliptical or running or something, what you could do is for the last 3 minutes or even the last 5 minutes, you could do something like 15 seconds of high speed followed by 45 seconds to 2 minutes, 45 seconds to 1 minute, 45 seconds of rest. So as soon as the clock hits zero, full speed for 15 seconds or maybe 30 seconds, whatever your capacity is, and then slow back down to zone two till the clock goes back to zero. And then again 15 seconds of high speed, and then slow down again. And when you hit zero, again 50 seconds of high speed. And these are all various ways in which you can add in high intensity work into your zone 2 cardio. And so on the blog, I have included all these examples: sprint inserts, cluster intervals, tempo plus sprint. And you don't have to get into too much of this, but whatever rocks your boat, whatever you find more convenient, because this can be done through cycling, elliptical, rowing machines, walking, running, swimming, and all of you will have different levels of fitness. So I don't want to give you an exact prescription, and that's something a personal trainer can give you, an exact prescription. But just to understand that you need to one, spend 30 minutes doing steady state cardio, and two, try to insert, I would say, 3 to 5 intervals of high intensity into that. And that high intensity you could do anything like for 15 seconds to even 30 seconds. I would say even 10 seconds, anything from 10 seconds to 30 seconds of high intensity. Now, if you play these sports, let's say for an hour, I think you can consider you've done your cardio for the day. That could be tennis, soccer, basketball, swimming, rowing, MMA, because all of these includes some steady state as well as some explosive bursts. So these sports are very similar to high intensity work, and I'm sure there would be many more sports which are very similar to this kind of hybrid work. My own cardio routine, I hate cardio, so what I do instead on my 3 cardio days, I will do 10-15 minutes of cardio snacks thrice a day. I use different machines, so I use an elliptical this morning, and then I use the exercise bike in the afternoon. This evening, I'll probably go for a short run around the block. It's nice weather outside. And at the end, I always just add in some high intensity work. So for the last 30 seconds of biking, or the last 30 seconds of elliptical, the last 30 seconds of running, I might just try to run as fast as I can or do the biking as fast as I can and just really get out of breath. And that really helps. If I'm playing say tennis for 1 hour, I consider that to be done for that day. I don't do any extra cardio on those days. Let's have some more questions about high intensity interval training and how you can add it to zone 2 cardio to make that a hybrid workout. We need one volunteer to ask a question. I might have to pick on someone. Let me pick on, let's pick on the new person, Vishal. Vishal, do you do any cardio? I know you play tennis over summer, but do you do any cardio in the winter time?
Yes, doctor. I just do cardio.
What's your
Uh,
current
I-
pattern? What
uh,
what pattern do you have currently?
Actually, I just do like a 15 minutes of a light jog on the treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a 15-20 minutes of like elliptical.
Excellent. That's good. And
Yep.
how many times a week would you do that?
I just try to do it like 3 to 4 times a week.
Excellent. Very good. So the only thing I would add here is whatever works for you,
Yeah.
add in some intensity bursts into it. So
Okay.
if you're doing a
I
if you do
do like I play soccer on the weekend, so I just have like one and a half hours like a soccer every weekend, every morning.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
just play like everything like Saturday, like I play
that's
soccer
really
every
good.
Saturday. Yep.
Yeah. So for example, if you're doing a 15-minute elliptical or 15-minute run, there are three ways you could bring in intensity. Okay. Let's say you want to aim for, if it's 15 minutes, let's say you want to bring in three segments of intensity. Either you could decide that every 5 minutes I will do anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds of full speed, and then I'll go back to zone two. Okay, that's one thing you could do. So in a 15-minute, you would have three inserts of high intensity, anywhere from 10 seconds to 30 seconds. The other way you could do it, because you could do it the last 5 minutes. So you could do 10 minutes of steady state in the last 5 minutes. Every minute you start, you do 10 seconds or 15 seconds of high intensity and then rest, and then again the next minute for 5 minutes. Or you could just finish the routine with a high intensity, uh, 30, 40 seconds of just high intensity at the very end of the routine. So those are the main three ways that you could add intensity into your routine. Okay.
Sure, doctor.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's get back to the talk. And finally, the last step five, would be to mix in calorie cycling with this. So you could do resistance training, higher protein, higher calories, 3 to 4 days a week. And then you can do cardio with more fiber, more plant polyphenols for recovery, and also lower calories, 3 to 4 days a week. Remember, whatever calories your app tells you, don't stick to the same exact calories every single day. Divide your week into resistance training days and fat burning days. And if you're like 300 to 400 calories up on the resistance training days, you could be 400 to 500 calories down from the target on your calorie burning days. And just as long as you are hitting your calorie target on average over the week, then that's good enough. So just a summary at the end. Zone 2 builds an engine, high intensity builds a ceiling of your capacity, hybrid training connects both. Uh, Sports are just as good for this kind of exercise. And with calorie cycling, you're aligning your nutrition with your training demand. So on your resistance training days, you're focusing more on your protein intake and your calorie intake, while on your cardio days, you're focusing more on higher fiber, higher polyphenols, more bulk in the food, less calorie density in the food, and more cardio. So you're doing more fat burning on those days. Great. I think that leaves us just few with about 15 minutes for more questions. Let's have some questions.
So, doctor, you said when we do the cardio, we need to have more fiber in the body in order to just build like burn more fat. And when we do like resistance training, it needs like more protein, right? Because we are trying to build the muscle, so we need just more protein on those days.
Yeah, that's right. Because the concept is anabolism versus catabolism. So anabolism means building. Building needs protein. So protein is what you really need for anabolism. Catabolism is burning fat. Now, what fiber does in your body? Fiber, when it gets inside your gut, turns into this cellulose mesh. It's like a jelly inside your gut. And it traps your sugar and traps your fat and doesn't allow it to get absorbed into your body, and you end up pooping it out. So there were studies showing that people who consume more fiber, their poop contains more calories because they're essentially pooping out their calories. They're absorbing fewer calories because of all that fiber. So if you're focused on fat burning and calorie deficit on those days, fiber is going to be your best friend. So if you're trying to have, especially if you're trying to do fasting mimicking diet on those, let's say 2 days a week, where you're trying to consume less than 1,000 calories per day, Your best friends will be boiled broccoli and boiled cauliflower. All of these high fiber foods will be a best friend because not only are they very low in calories and very high in bulking, they provide a lot of bulk, but they don't provide a lot of calories for that bulk. You will actually end up with even fewer calories than what you're counting because they will stop absorption of other calories as well. And it just so happens that those plant foods, especially the ones which contain lots of color, like tomatoes and onions, also contain polyphenols and antioxidants. And when you've done a workout with protein the day before, especially if you're doing these alternating days, then your body also needs recovery. It needs antioxidants and anti-inflammatory. So it just works out. It also is synergistic with having done resistance training the day before as well, increasing fiber and increasing polyphenols.
Got it. And if my aim is to become lean and just build less muscle, so I can increase my cardio days and just lesser my less like increase like more cardio days and then have less like resistance training days, right? Or do you recommend like
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. You could do that. So what you could do is I wouldn't recommend anything less than three resistance training days a week. So you could definitely make it a 3-to-4 ratio where you could do 3 days resistance training and 4 days cardio, if that's what you're really trying to achieve. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But I wouldn't recommend fasting mimicking diet for more than 2 days a week. So if you do a fasting mimicking diet, which is under 1,000 calories, I wouldn't recommend more than 2 days a week. If you do it two consecutive days, that's called the 60-hour pattern. If you do it on 2 days which are non-consecutive, that's called the 5-2 pattern. So you could have 2 days which are very low, under 1,000 calories, and you could do 2 days which are lower than your app recommendation, but not that low, not under 1,000. The problem with keeping your calories too low is that it kind of makes it more difficult for you to do any exercise or even cardio. So um, you will be just sitting around and burning fat for sure when your calories are that low, but it will be more difficult to be active. So it kind of makes a bit more sense that if your recommendation by your app is like say 1,500 calories, it makes more sense to maybe go down 300 calories on the cardio days, maybe go to 1,200 calories, but even go up 100, 200 calories on high protein resistant training days to compensate for that. And as long as your average net calories is round about where the app wants you to be, for whatever it calculated for half or 1 pound uh, ha- weight loss per week, it'll be fine. And you will end up with better body weight composition, which means for the same weight, having more muscle and less fat. Let's have some more questions. I'm curious what Edwin does. I don't know if Edwin's driving or not, but I know he does a lot of resistance training. Not so sure how much cardio he does.
Actually, I am indeed. It's been a good day. Actually, I did a lot of cardio at work, so I lift a lot of heavy products, so which is actually helping me. Actually, I lost some weight. Like I do need to get my daily amount of protein. Actually, for snacks, actually, I tried to bring you one of those bars, at least 2 bars or so. One, right, so I can get some protein in it because
Yeah.
right, like I need to build muscle mass as well, right? So
Yeah, but don't do it every day. Personally, I divide my week into my 3 resistance training days and my 3 cardio days. And one
right,
day is usually like a cheat day for me. And
yeah,
so I'll often find myself, because I need to get up from like 70 grams protein to like 120 grams protein on my resistance training days. I
yeah,
often find myself using my protein powder and my protein bar and some extra servings of 0% Greek yogurt. I find myself doing those on my resistance training days, but I wouldn't be necessarily doing those things on a cardio day. On a cardio day,
right,
I'm much more focused on my fruits and vegetables, my fiber, because I'm really looking for lower calories. And so for the most part, I'm looking at energy density of foods. I'm really looking for foods which have less calories for more bulk because I don't want to feel hungry. I don't want to feel
Yeah,
horrible. At the same time, I want to get less calories. So your fruits and vegetables, your high fiber foods are your best friend generally in that situation.
yeah. That's why I actually try to eat a lot of is high fiber foods.
Sounds good.
Actually, it satisfies you, right? Like it makes
Yeah,
you feel full for a long time.
exactly, exactly. If you have like a, I don't know, sweet potato with some broccoli and cauliflower or something like that, yeah, it's gonna keep you
Yeah,
full. It's gonna keep you full like anything.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I love broccoli, so I try
yeah.
to make it as much as
And
possible.
yeah, and a
And
whole bowl of
cauliflower.
broccoli, a whole bowl of broccoli will be like 40, 50 calories, like literally nothing. And even
Yeah,
a large sweet potato, boiled sweet potato would be like 150 calories, which is less than a
yeah.
bar, like less than a protein bar. And one protein bar will be 190 calories, but 190 calories of broccoli and sweet potato, maybe you can add some mozzarella cheese on top of that, will keep you full for like at least 5 times longer than a protein bar will. So
Right, exactly.
on those low calorie days, focus much more on the fiber and the food volume on those days.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Great. All right, you keep driving safely, Edwin.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, let's have a few more questions. I wonder if Maria or Nicola has a question, Vivek or Priya, anyone?
I just want to ask Dr. Howard, as it pertains to the sweet potato, I'm trying to find substitution for the rice because we consume a lot of rice based on our type of meals that we prepare.
Hmm.
So what would be, is it sweet potato is ideal to be one of those items that I can seriously use to substitute the rice? So in addition to the other
Yeah, for sure, for
vegetables.
sure. Yeah, sweet potato. If you're looking for starchy things, uh, when I talk about carbs,
Mhm.
the top quality carbs, which have the most fiber, and not just fiber, they also contain magnesium, zinc, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats. The top carbs are what we describe as whole and intact, which means
Mhm.
it never went to a mill, it never got broken down. It is whole and it's in its original form. And so that would be things like quinoa, brown rice, whole oats or rolled oats. And this is Mediterranean food, I think, is or Middle Eastern food called burbur or something like that. So all of those whole and intact grains are the
Mhm.
most in India they have these millets and these other kinds of grains as well. If it's
Mhm.
whole and it's intact, that's the highest quality. And
Mhm.
then you can also have other grains which are not whole and intact, but they have some fiber mixed in. So this could be brown bread, or it could be high fiber kind of like a tortilla wrap. Those
Mhm.
would be kind of second tier.
Okay.
And third tier would be the fiber. There is no fiber. The original fiber is gone. There is no fiber added back in. So this would be simple biscuits, croissants, cookies, donuts, timbits, all of those refined white pasta, white bread. These are all just we call them naked carbs. So the brown shell is gone. The clothes have been removed. So they spike your sugar. They give you a lot of calories for no benefit. Because remember that brown outer shell is what contains the fiber and the omega-3 and the protein and vitamins, minerals is all within the outer shell, not within the inside.
Okay. What about egg noodles? Is that a good substitute if I'm thinking about pasta?
Noodles is always second tier.
Uh-huh.
Bread and noodles is always second tier. Tortillas,
Okay.
breads, and noodles are always second tier. First tier is always whole and intact.
Okay. So it doesn't
Quinoa,
matter if it's egg noodles then, because I
egg
was
is
thinking
fine.
the egg noodles would be different
Egg
than
is
the
fine. The
regular.
only the only problem with egg is most people shouldn't eat more than two eggs a day. And the other thing is if you put a lot of oil or butter or ghee on the egg, then that's going to make a
Mhm.
very high calorie density. If it's boiled egg, hard-boiled egg, or even with spray of oil, that's usually fine. But what can spoil an egg is just using too much calorie dense oils on it or fats.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pastas, you can get the high fiber pastas and the high fiber noodles. but there's still processed foods and the fiber has been added back in. Those foods didn't naturally have fiber. So I always consider the one which contains natural fiber as the most superior. And then the things where like a plant protein bars which have fiber and the pasta with added fiber and the noodle with added fiber, whole bread and whole grains with fiber added back in is kind of second tier. It's still good, but it's second tier. Second tier. And third tier, or the worst, is where there is no fiber. Fiber has been removed and the fiber has also not been added back in. And fourth tier, the worst, is where you add preservatives and make it into a long storage food item. So this is your Dorito chips and your Rice Krispies and all. So because you've now added lots of preservatives and other chemicals into it as well. Yeah. So not all carbs are the same. Mr. Grimanis, let's make you the last question because we only have 3 minutes left. So Mr. Grimanis has the last question.
My wife is concerned that we're eating too much red meat, doctor, and she's concerned about her cholesterol. And the other question I have for you is we buy the farm-raised salmon from Costco. What's your opinion on that, doctor?
Yeah, I love trout. I love salmon. I love all kinds of fish. Fish is just really so healthy for us. It contains a lot of omega-3. Seafood generally is healthy as well. Generally contains omega-3. I don't like red meat at all, as you probably figured out by now. I have a whole blog called 6 Ways in Which Red Meat Causes Cancer. But even if we don't talk about cancer, if we just talk about weight gain, it just contains a lot of saturated fat and other anti-inflammatory compounds. These are things like mu5GC, TMAO, heme iron, which are inflammatory for the body. But even if you forget about cancer and inflammation, red meat is just very calorie dense. If you remember talking about protein, we need to look at the protein ratio. 0% Greek yogurt, you can get 20 grams of protein for like 100 calories. In a protein bar, you can get 25 grams of protein for 170 calories. But if you're having a McDonald's burger, you could be getting 30 grams of protein, but that'll be like 550, 600, even 1,000 calories. Why? Because it's greasy, it's got fat, dripping with fat, and all that increases the calorie count. So, a big mistake people make is they go to McDonald's, grab a McBurger and think that cheeseburger, and they're thinking, well, I got my protein. You did, but you got a lot of calories in it as well. So the protein to calorie ratio isn't that great. Plus, protein density aside, we need to think about protein quality. If you're having your protein through lentils, legumes, beans, chickpeas, soy products, you're getting fiber with the protein. Fiber reduces weight. Fiber reduces sugar and cholesterol. Fiber reduces risk of colon cancer as well. If you're getting protein through 0% Greek yogurt or low-fat mozzarella cheese or kefir, you're getting probiotics and you're getting calcium with it as well. Calcium is good for your bones. Probiotics is good for your gut health. If you're getting protein through fish, then you're getting omega-3. Omega-3 is good for your eyes and your brain and your heart. It's anti-inflammatory. If you're getting protein through duck, chicken, and turkey, which is white meats, it's kind of neutral. As long as it is baked and roasted and maybe just sautéed, it's fairly healthy. Not too many bad things there. Yeah, if you do deep frying it, you turn it to KFC deep fried chicken, that's not very healthy. And then red meats generally just very unhealthy because they contain a lot of saturated fat. And that's a concern even before you get to inflammation and cancer causing chemicals within the red meats. WHO has categorized processed red meat as a confirmed carcinogen, same as smoking. And non-processed red meat is considered to be a probable carcinogen, but not a confirmed carcinogen, as per the WHO. And I have a whole blog on this. Nicola has one last question, I think. Before
That's just a quick, no, just to follow up on his second part of his question, Dr. Rawat. I was waiting to hear. He asked about the farm raised salmon, and I have an interest in that because I don't usually buy this farm raised like fish and salmon and shrimp. So I want to know if it's a difference, if there's a difference against getting the wild caught or if it's okay to purchase the farm raised ones.
Personally, I'm not too concerned about these things because they're so expensive. Even I struggle to buy these things regularly. So if something is cheaper, I just buy that. Generally speaking, for fish, people are worried about mercury content. As long as you're not consuming it more than 4 times a week, it's very unlikely you'll get too much mercury in the system. The same applies to things like black beans. I'm quite happy to use canned beans, but just as long as you check the sodium content in the can, you can get. I get cans of black beans which have zero sodium, like zero, no sodium, and I've seen other cans of black beans which have 220 grams, even 600 grams of sodium. So as long as you don't eat fish more than 4 times a week, and that includes tinned tuna or any other, whether it's farmed or wild caught salmon, you won't get too much mercury and you'll get the benefit. And as long as you keep an eye on the sodium content, even tinned chickpeas and tinned beans are fine as well. Yeah. And if you have your own beliefs that you want to spend extra money on wild caught and this and that, sure, you're more than welcome to do that. Personally, I don't get too concerned about those things because I don't eat fish more than 4 times a week generally. Yeah. Great, good questions. All right. We'll catch up with you again next week. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.